Today is Friday, April 8th. We're talking about soon-to-be Justice Jackson, how Washington is reacting to this historic Supreme Court confirmation. Also, what Russia's losing because of a few votes around the world. Plus, what to know about a landmark mission to space. The one reason a legendary band that retired in the 90s is releasing new music today. And a metaverse for kids. Which two companies are teaming up to make it happen? Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It's official. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson will be the first Black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. And when she's sworn in, it'll be the first time in American history that the majority of justices will not be white men. The Senate confirmed her nomination yesterday with a pretty partisan final vote of 53-47. All the Democrats and 3 Republicans voted yes. So when the final tally was called, about half of the chamber erupted in loud applause. America's first Black woman vice president presided over the vote. And afterwards, Vice President Harris said, quote, "This is a historic day for America." And one of the 3 Republicans who supported her nomination said she did so because of Jackson's experience, qualifications, and integrity. But of course, not everyone was celebrating. Many Republicans argued that Jackson was soft on crime, partly because she used to be a public defender, and partly because there were times when, as a judge, she issued sentences below the federal guidelines. On top of that, many said she holds radical views about race and gender. Either way, she's in now. And today, the future Supreme Court Justice and President Biden will speak at an event celebrating her confirmation. Jackson will technically replace Justice Stephen Breyer when he retires this summer, but she will not actually start hearing cases until the Supreme Court's next term. That starts in October. The longer the war goes on in Ukraine, the more isolated Russia becomes. The U.S., European Union, and United Nations took action against the Russian government yesterday. First, the United Nations. The UN General Assembly voted to suspend Russia from the organization's leading human rights body. The Human Rights Council is supposed to spotlight and approve investigations of rights violations, among other things. Since many countries say they've seen evidence of Russia committing war crimes in Ukraine, most members decided Russia should no longer have a voice in that UN body. That made Russia the first permanent member of the United Nations Security Council to have its membership revoked from any part of the UN. Back in the U.S., Congress overwhelmingly voted to suspend normal trade relations with Russia and Russia's ally, Belarus. And that means there will be higher tariff rates on some imports from both Russia and Belarus. And Congress decided to back up President Biden's executive order that banned Russian oil imports, basically as a symbolic step since it's already happening. Meanwhile, the European Union approved a 5th package of sanctions against Russia, and it includes a total ban on Russian coal imports. That's estimated to be worth about $4.4 billion a year. And the EU is still considering banning oil imports, too. By the way, as the Western world takes more away from Russia, it's giving more to Ukraine. NATO members agreed to increase their supply of arms to Ukraine so it can keep defending itself against the Russian invasion. So remember how last week we told you the Biden administration decided to relax some of the strict rules at the southern border? Since then, there's been a lot of backlash growing on Capitol Hill and around the country. To recap, the White House said it would lift what's called Title 42. It's been in place since the start of the pandemic, and it lets border officials turn away undocumented adults without giving them a legal hearing. The rule is meant to prevent COVID-19 from spreading in holding facilities. Well, now that the public health risk isn't quite as high, officials decided the rule is no longer needed. But that made a lot of people unhappy since they worry the U.S.-Mexico border will become overwhelmed. So this week, a bipartisan group of senators introduced a new bill that would prevent the Biden administration from lifting Title 42, at least until the Homeland Security Department submits a plan to Congress about how the government will address a spike in people crossing the border. 6 Republicans and 5 Democrats co-sponsored this bill, but it's not clear how much support it has throughout the rest of Congress. One White House official told Axios in response, if Congress is concerned, lawmakers should take the issue on themselves and pass immigration reform as soon as possible. In the meantime, Homeland Security says it's preparing on its own to send more personnel to the border, create new migrant processing facilities, and get more buses and aircraft lined up. Power crews in Puerto Rico are scrambling to respond to a major outage that impacted people all across the island. A fire at a main power plant caused the biggest blackout so far this year. It left about 1.5 million people without electricity, about 170,000 were without water. Authorities had to close some main roads, and schools got canceled too. The power is slowly coming back on now, but it's not lost on the people who live there that this comes 2 months before the Atlantic hurricane season starts. And they worry this is just a sign that the power grid is fragile and more outages could be on their way. Power company officials say that's a valid concern, but that they're prepared to handle it. You may remember this was a huge issue following Hurricane Maria in 2017. At the time, there were some emergency repairs to the power system, but actual reconstruction efforts still have not started. Meanwhile, crews are cleaning up the power plant where the fire broke out, causing these most recent issues, and they've ordered replacement parts needed to get things back up and running, at least for now. More news just ahead, but first, let's take a moment for our sponsor. Springtime is the perfect time for kids to make new discoveries, like how caterpillars turn into butterflies. KiwiCo is such a great way to help your kids have the type of hands-on experiences in STEAM topics that will spark curiosity and inspire creativity. From rainbows to rocket ships and everything in between, KiwiCo has a subscription line for kids of all ages, so you know their experts have picked out the perfect items and projects for your child's readiness. We got our first KiwiCo when my son Dax was just an infant, and I remember our pediatrician complimenting us on one of the toys I brought into the office from our KiwiCo crate because it was so well designed for his particular age and development. And now it's fun to see how the KiwiCo crates change alongside him. So step into spring and celebrate the season of discovery with a KiwiCo subscription. Get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with the code newsworthy at kiwico.com. That's 30% off your first month at KIWICO, kiwico.com with the promo code newsworthy. It's a first-of-its-kind trip to the International Space Station. This morning's launch marks the first fully private crew to ever visit the ISS. In other words, there will not be any current NASA astronauts going or anyone that's still a member of the government. Instead, this crew is flying with a commercial aerospace company called Axiom Space, and they're hitching a ride on SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. There will be a former astronaut as the commander on this flight, who is now an Axiom employee. The 3 others on board each reportedly paid $55 million for a seat. It'll be an 8-day stay on the space station, which is about the size of a football field. They'll apparently do science experiments and research, hang out with the professional astronauts already on board, and take in the one-of-a-kind views of Earth from above. Some in the industry are calling this a turning point in space tourism, since Axiom hopes it's the first of many similar flights to come. 2 more NFL coaches are joining a racial discrimination lawsuit against the league. Remember, former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores first sued the NFL a couple of months ago, and now 2 more coaches have signed on. Former Arizona Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks, who's with another team now, and longtime defensive assistant coach Ray Horton. The coaches are accusing the league and certain teams of a couple of things. Either that they were not given a fair enough chance to succeed, or that they were put through sham interviews just to fill a quota, even when teams had no intention of hiring them. Wilkes said in a statement, quote, "This lawsuit has shed further important light on a problem that we all know exists, but that too few are willing to confront." The NFL has not commented about this change to the lawsuit yet, but in response to the original filing, the league has said it'll defend itself against the claims, calling them without merit. To be continued. Today's the day the Academy could make a decision about if and how to further punish Will Smith for the now infamous slap at the Oscars. The Academy Board of Governors moved their virtual meeting up from later this month to today. They originally had to give Smith enough notice to respond to the possible consequences, but now that he chose to resign from the Academy on his own, those rules no longer apply. Smith's resignation essentially means he can no longer vote on who can win an Oscar, although he can still win an award himself. It's not yet clear what other punishment, if any, Will Smith may face for hitting and cursing at Chris Rock during the Academy Awards last month. So stay tuned. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, the iconic rock band Pink Floyd is releasing new music. The band members reunited to create something that would raise money for the people of Ukraine. And they came up with a new single called Hey Hey Rise Up, which comes out today. It mixes the sounds of Pink Floyd members with vocals from a Ukrainian singer singing a patriotic Ukrainian song. One of Pink Floyd's members said they wanted to do more than just send money. They wanted to raise morale with the single. All the proceeds will go to the Ukraine Humanitarian Relief Fund. Well, there's a new effort in the works to make a metaverse just for kids. Fortnite developer Epic Games teamed up with Lego to create the new virtual space. So far, they haven't said a whole lot about the project, like what it could look like or when it might be available. But they're promising whatever they end up building will be safe and family-friendly. Of course, they're just the latest in a series of companies who have announced their own plans for the metaverse. As you know, Facebook rebranded to become Meta to showcase its focus on just that. Pokemon Go maker Niantic, major NFT brands, and more are also jumping on the trend. They don't all define the metaverse in the exact same way, but in general, they're all creating virtual worlds. Some to work, some to socialize, and others that are basically online playgrounds. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a message from our sponsor. Finding and booking a doctor who's right for you doesn't need to be a terrible experience. Will they take your insurance, understand your needs, or be available when you can see them? With ZocDoc, the answer can be a refreshingly pain-free yes. No more wasting time tracking down your brother's cash-only chiropractor or the dentist your coworker recommended but who's actually out of your network. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. The verified patient reviews allow you to see what other real humans had to say about their visit. Every month, millions of people use ZocDoc, and I'm one of them. And now, so is the executive producer of this show, who recently said she had a great experience with ZocDoc. So whenever you need to find and book a doctor, go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to Feel Good Friday. And today we're talking about two high schoolers in Georgia who are showing the world what friendship really looks like. Jordan Sloan and Marcus San Miguel were both standout athletes. Jordan on the football field and Marcus on the basketball court. But sadly, Jordan took a hit to the head during a football game back in 2020, and he was left with brain trauma that at the time was so bad he couldn't move his arms or legs. Since then, he's been getting better by working with a team of therapists. But of course, that gets pretty expensive. So his friend Marcus found a way to help. He decided to take advantage of his basketball skills to raise money for Jordan's family. He takes pledges for every charge he takes in a game, which has really added up. So far, he's raised more than $16,000. And all of that money has gone on to help Jordan's family buy things insurance won't cover, like a wheelchair and extra rehab treatments. If you want to make a pledge, we've added a link in today's episode notes. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode all about cursing, where profanity gets its power and how to navigate using it or not at work. Then join us again Monday for your next news roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.